The Senate will come to order. From Louisiana.
One call.
No, we are not.
Mr. President, there are reports that the government will be reopened tonight or tomorrow morning. And all I can say is it's about time. It's been 40 days too long. But we also know that there's going to be some vote in the not so distant future on what do we do about high health insurance costs, and then hopefully another vote as to what can we do about the high health care costs that are driving the high health insurance costs. And we need to talk now. We can't just come upon the vote and suddenly have a solution. Rather, people need to be thinking about it between now and then about the solutions that benefit the American people. Clearly, we have a problem with the affordability of health care and of health insurance. And of course, that's related. And this is something that in my professional life as a physician, I addressed over 20-something years before entering political life. I practiced in a public hospital for the uninsured for over 2 decades, seeing middle-income and lower-income Americans, fellow Americans, who for whatever reason couldn't afford their insurance or couldn't afford their health care, and they came to the hospital for the uninsured. Now, so, health insurance, health care costs, very complicated. And we've got to be a little bit more creative than just the federal government throwing money at it. Obamacare tried to do that, and it has not worked. The enhanced premium tax credits, or the EPTC, is the latest example. It was a COVID program, unrelated to the original Obamacare program, and the enhanced premium tax credits sent billions of taxpayer dollars straight to the insurer, hoping that families would see smaller bills. But you know, it might paper money over the high health insurance costs, but it did nothing for health care costs. And by the way, it also made health insurance more expensive for many. So I think we can do better than just hiding the cost of high health care and high health insurance costs by the federal government spending billions more. So, an idea that I'm asking my colleagues and the American people to consider is a pre-funded federal flexible spending account. Now let me make a couple things clear. First, I am not speaking for John Thune, the majority leader. I'm not speaking for Donald Trump. In fact, although I'm the chairman of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Committee, I'm more speaking as Bill Cassidy, a doctor that worked with the uninsured for 20 years and is now representing the great state of Louisiana. And I'm speaking to my colleagues and to fellow Americans, asking all of us to put aside our prejudice, to put aside our kind of, oh no gosh, a Republican's proposing it or a Democrat's proposing it, so therefore I must oppose. No, to actually come together in good faith to try and find a solution. So let me first describe what I'm speaking of. First, there are 2 types of tax credits on the Affordable Care Act exchanges, the Obamacare exchanges. And I'm going into this for a reason. One is the baseline tax credit that was enacted into law in 2010 that lowers premium costs for those less than 400% of federal poverty. So, first one started in 2010 under Obamacare, the original legislation. It goes to people making less than 400% of federal poverty. During COVID, there was another sum added called the enhanced premium tax credit. And that gives some extra benefits to those less than 400% of federal poverty level, but began to cover people over 400% of federal poverty level. So 2 pots of money. One pot dates from 2010, part of the original Affordable Care Act law, and the other passed by the Biden administration during the COVID pandemic, benefiting those above 400% of federal poverty. What I'm proposing does not touch that baseline. What I'm about to propose does not touch the monies that were set aside in 2010 under the Affordable Care Act. Why do I say that? President Trump endorsed the concept I'll be speaking of, and one of my Democratic colleagues said, wait, are you going to give all the insurance money for these accounts? No, time out, absolutely not. We're going to leave that portion which was part of the baseline alone, not touching it at all. but trying to do something with the enhanced premium tax credits that only began most recently by President Biden under the COVID pandemic. That begs the question, why were enhanced premium tax credits necessary? Premiums have gone up so much. The Affordable Care Act was supposed to lower the cost of health care. The cost of health care has exploded. The cost of health insurance has exploded. And unfortunately, under the enhanced premium tax credit, it doesn't matter what the premium is. The federal taxpayer throws billions more at it. And the insurance company lost the incentive to negotiate down prices because whatever the price was, the taxpayer would help pay for it. And we misaligned the incentives to where the insurance companies actually do better if health care costs are high. Now, by the way, I'm not here to bash insurance company. We need them, they're essential, but everybody's going to respond to incentives, and the incentive here is not the right incentive. So, how can we do something different? Well, I'd like to empower the patient instead of sending billions to the insurance company. And if we can put in programs that lower health care costs, we may still have premiums that are too high this year because, my gosh, we only got 2 months until the next plan year starts. But we're going to be able to substitute out these enhanced premiums with something which doesn't go to the insurance company, but goes to you, the patient. And we're going to begin the process of aligning the incentives for giving the patient the incentive to find the better deal. And that begins to lower cost. By the way, that means that we have to think differently. Now, let's try a new approach as opposed to just sending paper money to paper over the high health care costs and the resultant high premiums. Where is our health care? This is kind of my idea, Mr. President. Right now we have the enhanced premium tax credit, which I've been speaking of. It goes to the insurance company. That should say 20 right there. It says 80. I'm just going to mark that out right now. I'm just going to, right now, Mr. President, give me just a second. I'm going to take this down. I'm going to go this, and I'm going to go 20. But that 20 is the administrative cost and the profit that the insurance companies take out of every dollar you take them. I wish I had a marks a lot. My assistants get me a marks a lot. Oh, right there. No, because I had a misprint last night. I don't want it to be misprinted now. This should be 20. Of that $26 billion we're going to send them next year, 20% of the $26 billion goes to profit and it goes to administrative cost. Can we do it better? By golly, we can. Mr. President, here we go. I'm going to get this out of here. I'm just bugged the heck out of this. This should say 20. 20% of the $26 billion we send them next year would go to profit and administrative overhead. What if we give the patient the power? What if we say it goes to an account that she controls, that she can spend on her physician, her dental care, her prescriptions, on her eyeglasses. She can spend it on orthodontia. She can spend it on more things than this. And by the way, 100% of the $26 billion would go to the real care that that woman and her family needs. So we need to empower her, not give 20% of $26 billion to insurance companies. Nothing against insurance companies. God bless them, we need them. But if I have a choice of empowering you or empowering them, 100% to you or 20% to them, my vote's with you. And I think we as a Congress, no matter what your political party, should all vote the same way. I want to emphasize something here, by the way. This is pre-funded. People think about flexible spending accounts and they think, well, my gosh, this poor person, 120% of federal poverty, 150% of federal poverty, has to put their own money into this. No. We take the dollars that are in the enhanced premium tax credit and we put them there instead, and it's pre-funded. So, a little different than we normally think of flexible spending accounts, but it still works. Now, a couple things I've heard from my Democratic colleagues, by the way. My Democratic colleagues are concerned that whatever we pass over here will not get a vote in the House of Representatives. I'm pleased to say, yesterday, President Trump tweeted in favor of this proposal. I'm sure he would ask Mike Johnson to take it up. If Democrats want to vote on something that benefits the American people, and by the way, here's the tweet. You can't read this. It's classic President Trump. He's talking about money-sucking insurance companies. And then in all caps, he goes, be sent directly to the people so that they can purchase their own much better health care. That's the president's way of emphasizing, let's give power to the people, not send 20% of the money to the insurance companies. And as I said, with this tweet, the president indicating his support, I think we rely upon him to ask Speaker Johnson to bring it up in the House of Representatives. So if Democrats want to vote on something that will have a vote in the House, they got it right there, the president's endorsement. I think this works all the way around. And let me say once more, after the president tweeted, I'm going to repeat, but it's important to repeat because this is a point of misunderstanding. After the president tweeted this, one of my Democratic colleagues said, wait, are you going to give all the money to this account for these people? And the answer is no. The baseline continues to go to buy the health insurance policy, but that enhanced premium tax credit is the sum that goes there. And I'm just going to say this once more. It is the enhanced premium tax credit that goes there. Now, the other thing I hear, this is way too complicated. No way, can't do it. Can't do it. Turns out, I have a flexible spending account. Over 70% of government employees in the United States of America have a flexible spending account as one of their offerings. Over 40% of those in the commercially insured market have a flexible spending account as one of their offerings. The state of Indiana has used something similar to this for their Medicaid population, and it's worked extremely well. This is not so complicated that federal employees, Medicaid recipients, you name it, 70% of our fellow Americans have the option of choosing this if they work for a government entity, and over 40% if they work for a business. So this is something which is already out there. And then I'm told, well, the federal government has to set it up. You know, I will point out that I am on an Obamacare policy through the Small Business Exchange. My FSA is already administered by the federal government through the Small Business Obamacare Exchange. All we're asking them to do is to open that window a little bit more and to take in the individual market Obamacare exchange. We already have the existing mechanisms to do this within the federal government. This can be done. We should not consider it so complicated to accomplish. Now, inevitably, there's going to be some bureaucrat that says they need 6 months to open a window. And that's why I'm glad President Donald Trump is the president when this is coming up. Because if there's one guy that can cut through the bureaucratic, I'm a gastroenterologist and certain terms came to mind. And you're a farm state, maybe they do to you. But the one guy that can cut through the stuff that seems an obstacle to others, it's President Donald Trump. I always smile. Operation Warp Speed, they said it might take 18 months, maybe 10 years to get a vaccine to market. And President Trump's leadership led it to being in people's arms from before we started within 11 months. This man can make it happen. So I don't consider it too complicated for the patient to understand. And I don't consider it too complicated for the federal government to adapt to, which means we could even do it in 2026. Now, next thing I hear, is it going to cost money? It's going to cost money. And again, my Democratic colleagues should like this because the first year, it'll cost about the same as the enhanced premium tax credits. Because right now, we're 2 months from the beginning of the year, and there's not a whole lot of time for reforms to be put in place to lower the cost of health care. So for our fellow Americans who are depending upon this, we can fix it for them. But now we also have the opportunity to pass other reforms that truly will lower the cost of health care. So come 2027, these reforms, those reforms begin to work down the cost of health care, and we as Americans will benefit not just in the Obamacare exchanges, but in the commercial market, in the Medicare space, in other spaces as well. We begin to lower health care costs for all. That's more value for the individual, more value for the employer, more value for the taxpayer. So the choice is before us. We can continue to try and paper over the cost of health insurance by throwing billions more at it. Under the enhanced premium tax credit, the money goes to insurance companies and 20% gets hung up in administrative cost and profit. Or we can spend 100% of it in pre-funded flexible spending accounts benefiting patients and their families. What can it be used for? Under the enhanced premium tax credit, you're choosing to use it for insurance premiums and whatever the insurance company thinks you should get. Under the pre-funded flexible spending account, you decide. Or, since I'm looking at a Senator Kramer's wife decides, because women make most of these decisions, and she'll decide to pay for dental, physician, glasses, prescriptions, or orthodontia, you name it, she gets to pick. Who makes the decision? Under the enhanced premium tax credit, insurance companies. Under the pre-funded flexible spending account, the patient does. The mother does. The wife does. These are the people that will then make the decisions. And does it lower cost? No. Under the enhanced premium tax credit, it drives premiums up. Under the pre-funded flexible spending account, we empower patients to shop, to find the best deal for their dollar. That drives competition, and that lowers cost. Mr. President, I cannot imagine why anybody would choose the status quo of enhanced premium tax credits versus giving the patient the power. We should give the patient the power. And I say this, and I want to be very clear here. I am not being partisan. I am being in good faith trying to say that everyone should put their party behind them, put their partisan politics behind them, and be focused only on how do we lower health care costs for the average American. No, for all Americans. How do we lower health care costs? That should be our focus. My staff asked me if I'm wearing a purple tie because I'm bipartisan. I said, no, I'm wearing a purple tie because LSU lost badly last night and I thought we should encourage them. So this is my LSU Tiger tie. That said, just so it works out that I am really emphasizing this is something that we can work on together. President Trump's for it, and I'd like my Democratic colleagues to consider it. Not just reject it because a Republican proposes, but to actually realize it's in good faith trying to find a solution for the high health care costs that are hurting American families. Let's take a risk. Let's take a risk. Let's be bold. Let's do something different than we've done before. No, the same thing we've done before, but we've done it in a different space. We've done it on the small business Obamacare exchange. We've done it through our employer. We've done it through the Indiana Medicaid program. Let's try it in the individual exchange. Let's just trust that patient to make wise decisions for ourselves as opposed to treating them like something the federal government has to tell them what to do. I'll return where I started. As a doctor who took care of the uninsured for 20 years, I always found that my patients, even if they weren't really educated, but you explained the options to them, they made wise decisions. They made sophisticated decisions. When you gave them control of their health care and you allowed them to make that wise decision. Let's trust the American people, Mr. President. Let's give power to the patient, not billions to the insurance companies. And with that, I yield.
Will come to order. Senator from Kansas.
Mr. President, thank you. Exactly 1 month ago today, I stood on the Senate floor and spoke about the impact of the government shutdown was having on an already troubled aviation system, and that the traveling public was facing tremendous challenges with that shutdown, and I cautioned against prolonging it. Now, 30 days later, we're still here. I was concerned that if the shutdown continued, it can force the closure of parts of the airspace and lead to further reductions in the air traffic controller workforce. Unfortunately, both these concerns have materialized in what has become the longest government shutdown in our nation's history. With 2,300 cancellations and counting today, Sunday, we will go down as one of the worst days in air travel. I've never seen anything good come from a government shutdown. Lapses in federal funding have made it harder for families to access SNAP benefits. Head Start programs have been put on pause, and thousands of federal employees are unable to receive a paycheck. This dysfunction is damaging enough to our constituents and economy here at home, but it also sends a dangerous message to the watching world. It demonstrates to our allies that we are an unreliable partner, and it signals to our adversaries that we can't work together to meet even the most fundamental responsibilities of Congress. As this shutdown continues, I want to particularly focus on the impact of this lapse funding is having on the aviation industry. TSA agents and air traffic controllers have had to continue working while missing 2 paychecks. It's a stressful job, and one that has grown increasingly more difficult throughout the year. Combine that with uncertainty on how to pay rent, put food on the table, and gas in your car. It is no surprise that we're seeing more and more controllers not show up to work. We are already facing a shortage of controllers, and now we are seeing more having to pick up second jobs to pay the bills, or seeing some quit entirely. Our inaction and our inability to gain consensus are deterring young people interested in futures such as air traffic controllers or other aviation professionals from pursuing those careers. The vulnerabilities in our aviation system has led Secretary Sean Duffy to begin reducing flights by 10% at 40 major airports. Airlines, businesses, and general aviation alike are cutting into their operations to make certain that airspace is as safe as possible. It is critical to know that these impacts are not lopsided on those high traffic areas. Small and medium hub airports, such as we have in Kansas, that connect to those 40 are experiencing this pain just as much. While this is a painful step, it is necessary for the safety of the traveling public, and I support Secretary Duffy's decisions. American Airlines indicated to me they've canceled more than 240 flights yesterday and delayed more than 1,000 flights, impacting more than 150,000 passengers. Airlines for America said that staffing shortages disrupted the flights of more than 4 million passengers from October 1 to November the 7th on their partner airlines. And that was before the mandatory reductions were put in place by the Department of Transportation. We can expect more cuts if we do not reopen the government. We saw how fragile our air system is, and it's the reason I highlight aviation and the consequences of the shutdown tonight. We saw how fragile our air system is earlier this year when a series of failures led to a mid-air collision on January the 29th, which claimed the lives of 67, including those of Kansas. That accident forced Congress and our nation to reckon with an issue that has plagued us for decades. Why have we not effectively modernized our airspace system? Since that crash, steps have been taken to train more controllers and improve the aviation system, including a $12.5 billion investment in modernizing our airspace. But those efforts are becoming much more difficult to accomplish during a shutdown. Unfortunately, the position of the aviation industry it finds itself in today cannot be easily solved, but we cannot even begin to solve it unless we reopen the government. Every day we remain shut down, the fragility of this system intensifies. Thanksgiving is only 18 days away. Americans are purchasing, or would have purchased, or already purchased tickets to be with their families. If we remain in a shutdown much longer, it will become increasingly difficult for airlines to deliver on their promises to their customers. The circumstances we are in cannot continue. We must reopen the government. I urge my colleagues to pass a clean continuing resolution to reopen government. I'm committed to working with my colleagues, to address the concerns they have and any issues brought forth by the shutdown. We must return to regular order, advance a clean CR and these 3 appropriation bills, and then consider further appropriations and these issues so that many of us care so deeply about. Our constituents and our nation depend upon us to do so. Mr. President, I note the absence of a quorum.
Ms. Alston-Brooks.
Majority Leader,
President, I ask unanimous consent the quorum call be suspended,
without objection.
and I ask unanimous consent that the following senators be allowed to speak for up to 5 minutes each: Senator Collins, Senator Schumer, Senator Sanders, and me.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Senator from Maine.
Mr. President, today the Senate Appropriations Committee advanced legislation to reopen government immediately, funding vital programs and resuming pay for federal workers whom for the last 40 days have had to live with the stress of missed paychecks and not knowing when they would be paid. Under our legislation, all federal employees, including members of our military and Coast Guard, the Capitol Police officers, Border Patrol agents, TSA screeners, air traffic controllers, all will receive their back wages. It is significant that this measure also includes 3 full-year fiscal year 2026 appropriations bills, including the annual agriculture FDA bill, the military construction and Veterans Affairs legislation, very timely given that Veterans Day will soon be upon us, and the legislative branch funding. This 3-bill package, which originally passed the Senate on August 1st with overwhelming bipartisan support, 87 votes in 2 cases, 81 in another, will support our veterans, our troops, our farmers, and rural communities. Of note, this package will provide full-year funding for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, known as SNAP, and the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for women, infants, and children, known as WIC. One of the most unfortunate and shameful consequences of the shutdown has been that these vital nutrition programs were in jeopardy for our most vulnerable families, including 170,000 Mainers who rely on the SNAP program. Other programs will be funded through January 30th, while the Senate and House continue our work on the remainder of the year-long appropriations bills. For example, funding for important programs like Head Start and such as the low-income heating assistance program will now be restored. I look forward to voting for this legislation and ending the unnecessary harm to the security of our families and our nations. We must begin to act tonight. We must not delay any longer. Finally, Mr. President, I want to thank the many members on both sides of the aisle of the Appropriations Committee and the Senate leadership who have worked especially hard to bring this package together. And I would be remiss if I did not also thank our staff. My staff missed an entire night's sleep to get this package together and get the job done. Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I want to particularly thank the members of the Appropriations Committee, including the three who served as the subcommittee chairs, Senator Bozeman, Senator Hoeven, and Senator Mullen. I want to thank Senator Britt, who did an extraordinary amount of work, Lisa Murkowski, Mike Rounds, Jerry Moran, Sherry Moore Capito, Sidney Hyde-Smith, Deb Fisher. There's so many who worked so hard on this package. I want to thank each and every one of them. Let's get the job done, and let's do it fast. Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Hoeven in my list. Senator Hoeven was a rock star, so I want to make sure that I mentioned him. Thank you.
Senator from Vermont.
I understand that the way the process has been developed, it is impossible to delay the votes that are going to take place. And if that were not the case, that is certainly what I would do, because I think it is important that the American people fully understand what is being voted on today. Everybody in America knows that our current healthcare system is broken, it is dysfunctional, it is cruel, it is by far the most expensive healthcare system in the world, and the only healthcare system of any major country that does not guarantee healthcare to all people as a human right, covering every man, woman, and child. We are unique in that respect. And yet tonight, what this Senate is about to do is make a horrific situation even worse. So let's be clear what this vote is about. If this vote succeeds, over 20 million Americans are going to see at least a doubling in their premiums in the Affordable Care Act. In my state of Vermont and throughout this country, for certain groups of people, it will be a tripling and a quadrupling of their premiums. There are people who will now be paying 50% of their limited incomes for health care. Does anybody in the world think that makes sense? And if this resolution is passed tonight, we are on a pathway to throw 15 million Americans off of Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. 15 million. Our job is to create universal health care. Guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child, not throw 15 million people off the health care they have, low-income and working-class people. And my friends, know what you are voting on. Studies are out there that when you throw 15 million people off of health care, some 50,000 of our fellow Americans will die unnecessarily every single year. Anyone think that's funny? Something to laugh at? Something to just go past? I don't. 50,000 Americans die unnecessarily. Now, I know as part of this resolution that the majority leader is going to say, well, Democrats can put together their own bill, and it'll come to the floor here in the Senate for a vote. As everybody here knows, that is a totally meaningless gesture. You can get 100 votes here in the Senate. Won't mean anything because the House is not going to take it up, and the President of the United States certainly will not sign it. So, Mr. President, I hope that anybody here who is thinking of voting for this reconsiders, goes back home and talks to their constituents and asks them what it will mean if their health care premiums are doubled or tripled. Thank you, Mr. President.
The Democratic leader.
Mr. President, America is in the midst of a Republican-made health care crisis, worse than anything the American people have seen in decades. Republicans have spent the past 10 months dismantling the health care system, skyrocketing costs, and making every day harder for American families. Because of Republicans, Americans are going to suffer immensely as this health care crisis gets worse. Democrats have been fighting to end this crisis over and over again. Democrats have wanted to lower costs, but Republicans fought us every step of the way. We gave Republicans not one, not two, but 3 chances this year to extend the ACA premium tax credits. Republicans said no every time. On Friday, we offered Republicans a compromise, a proposal that would extend the ACA tax credits for a year and open up the government at the same time. They once again said no. And when they said no on our compromise, they showed that they are against any health care reform. Instead, they passed the biggest health care cuts in our nation's history just to give tax breaks to billionaires, and even then, they weren't satisfied with merely closing hospitals and community health clinics. They callously did nothing to deal with the looming crisis of ACA credits. Premiums will spike by thousands of dollars a month. Millions will lose insurance. Democrats have sounded the alarm. We have demanded for months to meet with the Republican leadership. But Republican leaders refuse to even discuss the issue, let alone negotiate it. We've asked them to meet in the summer and throughout the shutdown. To this day, Republicans still say no. We asked President Trump to step in and meet with us to deliver lower health care for Americans, and instead, Donald Trump has taken the American people hostage, from cutting off food aid to hungry families and vets and seniors and kids, to manufacturing flight cancellations, to cutting off home heating aid, while he builds a billion-dollar ballroom with gold-plated toilets. Therefore, I must vote no. This health care crisis is so severe, so urgent, so devastating for families back home that I cannot in good faith support this CR that fails to address the health care crisis. But let me be clear, however this vote turns out, this fight will and must continue. Democrats must fight because of millions of families will lose health care coverage. We must fight because children who are dying of cancer will not get health care coverage. We must fight because a senior citizen cannot afford to pay $25,000 a year just for health insurance. We must fight to keep millions from financial ruin. And make no mistake about it, the American people know who is inflicting this health care trauma on them: Donald Trump and the Republicans. Americans will remember Republican intransigence every time they make a sky-high payment on health insurance. So we are going to fight legislatively, fight back home, fight in the courts, and bring this fight in the elections. Health care costs made a major impact on the 2025 election, and they will certainly have an even greater impact on the 2026 election. So in conclusion, the contrast between the two parties is crystal clear. Republicans are the party hell-bent on taking people's health care away, all to bow to the billionaire elite and special interests. Democrats are united as the party of lower health care costs and improving our health care system. We will not give up this fight. We will deliver for the American people. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, after 40 long days, I'm hopeful that we can finally bring this shutdown to an end. And I don't need to go over all the reasons why it's imperative that we get the government open as soon as possible. From the truly precarious situation we are in with regard to air travel to the fact that our staffs have been working without pay for a full 40 days now, all of us, Republicans and Democrats, who support this bill know that the time to act is now. And so in just a few minutes, I will call up the vehicle for a clean continuing resolution packaged with 3 bipartisan year-long appropriations bills: agricultural appropriations, military construction, VA appropriations, and legislative branch appropriations. These bills will fund SNAP for the entire fiscal year. They will fund WIC for the entire fiscal year. And they will fund our veterans for the entire fiscal year. After 40 days of uncertainty, I'm profoundly glad to be able to announce that nutrition programs, our veterans, and other critical priorities will have their full-year funding. And my goal is to quickly move to other full-year appropriations bills. As I've said many times, I firmly believe that the way to fund the government is by passing appropriations bills through regular order, a process that gives senators from both parties the fullest chance to make their voices heard. Mr. President, I also want to mention health care. There's been a lot of talk over the last several weeks on both sides of the aisle about the health care crisis in this country. And I'm thankful to be able to say that we have senators, both Democrat and Republican, who are eager to get to work to address that crisis in a bipartisan way. These senators are not interested in political games. They're interested in finding real ways to address health care costs for American families. We also have a president who is willing to sit down and get to work on this issue. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what solutions might be brought forward. Regardless, as I have said for weeks to my Democrat friends, I will schedule a vote on their proposal, and I've committed to having that vote no later than the second week in December. Mr. President, again, I am optimistic that after almost 6 weeks of this shutdown, we'll finally be able to end it. I will call up that bill in a matter of minutes, and I look forward to passing the clean continuing resolution and appropriations bill package in the very near future. Now, Mr. President, I move to proceed to the motion to reconsider the cloture vote on October 16th on the motion to proceed to H.R. 5371.
The question's on the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Others no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
Mr. President, I move to reconsider the cloture vote on the motion to proceed to H.R. 5371.
The question's on the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion's agreed to. The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the motion to proceed to Calendar 168, H.R. 5371, an act making continuing appropriations and extensions for fiscal year 2026 and for other purposes.
Under the previous order, the mandatory quorum call under Rule 22 has been waived. The question is it the sense of the Senate that debate on the motion to proceed to H.R. 5371, an act making continuing appropriations and extensions for fiscal year 2026 and for other purposes, shall be brought to a close upon reconsideration? The yeas and nays are mandatory under the rule. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks. Ms. Baldwin. Mr. Banks. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Bennett. Mrs. Blackburn. Thank you. Mrs. Blackburn. Mr. Blumenthal. Ms. Rochester. Mr. Booker. Mr. Booker. Mr. Bozeman. I am. Thank you. I got you. Gotcha. Mrs. Britt. Mr. Budd, Ms. Cantwell, Mrs. Capito, Mr. Cassidy, Ms. Collins, Mr. Coons, Mr. Cornyn, Ms. Cortez Masto, Mr. Cotton, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Crapo, I got him, Mr. Cotton, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Crapo, Mr. Cruz, Mr. Curtis, Mr. Daines, Ms. Duckworth, Mr. Durbin, Ms. Ernst, Mr. Fetterman, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Gallego, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mr. Haggerty, Ms. Hassan, Mr. Hawley, Mr. Heinrich, Mr. Hickenlooper, Ms. Hirono, Mr. Hoven, Mr. Husted, Mrs. Hyde-Smith, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Justice, Mr. Kane, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Kim, Mr. King, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Langford, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lujan, Ms. Lummis, Mr. Markey, Mr. Marshall, Mr. McConnell, Mr. McCormick, Mr. Merkley, Mrs. Moody, Mr. Moran, Mr. Marino, Mr. Mullen, Ms. Murkowski, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Ossoff, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Paul, Mr. Peters, Mr. Reed, Mr. Ricketts, Mr. Risch, Ms. Rosen, Mr. Rounds, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schiff, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Scott of Florida, Mr. Scott of South Carolina, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Sheehy, Ms. Slotkin, Ms. Smith, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Thune, Mr. Tillis, Mr. Tuberville, Mr. Van Hollen, Mr. Warner, Mr. Warnock, Ms. Warren, Mr. Welch, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Mr. Young, Senators voting in the affirmative: Barrasso, Blackburn, Bozeman, Britt, Budd, Capito, Cassidy, Collins, Cotton, Kramer, Cruz, Curtis, Daines, Durbin, Fisher, Graham, Haggerty, Hoven, Husted, Hyde-Smith, Kane, Kennedy, King, Lankford, Lummis, Marshall, McCormick, Moody, Moran, Marino, Mullen, Murkowski, Ricketts, Rounds, Schmidt, Sheehy, Sullivan, Thune, Tuberville, Wicker, and Young. Yep. Senators voting in the negative: Baldwin, Bennett, Cantwell, Duckworth, Hirono, Kelly, Kim, Markey, Padilla, Paul, Reed, Sanders, Warner, and Welch. Mr. Hickenlooper, no. Mr. Banks, aye. Mr. Schatz, no. Ms. Klobuchar, no. Mr. Merkley, no. Ms. Blunt Rochester, no. Mrs. Murray, no. Mr. Wyden? No. Mr. Van Hollen, no. Ms. Hassan, aye. Mr. Crapo, aye. Mr. Gallego, no. Mr. Schiff, no. Mr. Scott of South Carolina, aye. Mr. Tillis, aye. Mr. Justice, aye. Ms. Cortez Masto, aye. Mrs. Shaheen, aye. Hi, thank you. Mr. Lujan, no. Mr. Heinrich, no. Ms. Smith? No. Ms. Rosen? Aye. Ms. Alsobrooks, no. Ms. Warren, no. Mr. Murphy? No. Mr. McConnell? Aye. Mr. Whitehouse, no. Mr. Fetterman, aye. Mr. Warnock, no. Mr. Risch, aye.
Sorry about that, sir.
Mr. Blumenthal? No. Mr. Hawley? Aye. Ms. Ernst? Aye. Mr. Grassley, aye. Ms. Slotkin, no. Mr. Peters, no.
So Carson's coming back supposedly next year.
Well, he should.
Mr. Ossoff, no. Mr. Schumer, no. Mr. Coons, no. Mrs. Gillibrand, no. Mr. Booker, no.
Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson. Aye. Mr. Lee. Aye. Mr. Scott of Florida. Aye.
Mr. Cornyn, aye.
On this vote, the yeas are 60 and the nays are 40. 3/5 of the Senate duly chosen and sworn, having voted in the affirmative, the motion upon reconsideration is agreed to.
Bill at the desk and ask for its first reading.
Clerk will read the title of the bill for the first time.
S 3168, a bill to appropriate funds for pay and allowances of federal employees and so forth and for other purposes.
Mr. President, I now ask for a second reading. In order to place the bill on the calendar under the provisions of Rule 14, I object to my own request.
Objections heard.
Bill will be read for the second time in the next legislative day.
Bill will be read for a second time in the next legislative day.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that when the Senate completes its business today, it stand adjourned until 11 a.m. on Monday, November the 10th. Following the prayer and pledge, the general proceedings be approved today. The morning hour be deemed expired. The time for the two leaders be reserved for the use later in the day. And the Senate resume consideration of the motion to proceed to calendar number 168, H.R. 5371, post-closure. Finally, that all time during recess, adjournment, morning business, and leader remarks count post-closure on the motion to proceed.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. President, if there's no further business to come before the Senate, I ask that it stand adjourned under the previous order.
Senate stands adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow.